Welcome to the first episode of John Dutton Must Die, a Yellowstone podcast that is official and unofficial. It's more unofficial than anything. But my name is Justin Kirkland, and I'm here with my co-host, my best friend. He's a brother to me. He is the only person I would let ride my horse, and that's Dan Thompson.
Oh, Justin, you're too kind. You're too kind. I mean, especially with the horse comment. I mean, God love you. Like, that's serious. That's big words there.
Well, give it 3 episodes and I'll burn your house down.
That's true. That's true. It depends on what you're spraying in the river. I can tell you that. And I will say this. It's a long time coming, Justin. We've been talking about Yellowstone for over a year. You and I, back and forth through text. You get to actually speak to these actors from time to time because of your day job. It's about time we did this and just set aside a time every week where you and I get to talk Yellowstone.
I almost feel like a year is a little bit conservative. I feel like this has been like in the works for at least a year and a half.
No, you're right. I think more like almost 2 years now that you say it out loud. Because we were talking about it before the Tom Brady won the Super Bowl, which was not the last Super Bowl. That was the Super Bowl before then. So we've been talking about doing this for 2 years.
And look at us now. I of course come to it. So to give all y'all a bit of background, I wasn't watching Yellowstone during the first season, and my dad, who is this kind of like East Tennessee, like working class, like hillbilly guy, was like, "You gotta check out Yellowstone." And I went, "Dad, I have too much to watch because I am a entertainment writer, so I'm watching TV all the time." And he called me again. He was like, "You gotta watch Yellowstone." And I went, "Dad, I don't have time." He said, "You gotta watch Yellowstone." I said, "If I watch it, will you quit calling?" And I've been hooked ever since. I'm an evangelist for Beth Dutton, and I've gotten the pleasure of speaking with a whole bunch of the cast, been covering it, but that's all very professional. I wanted to be in a place where I can just kind of like talk about my opinions and talk about it the way we would over a drink or a coffee or, whatever.
A martini if you're Beth Dutton. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. And then I throw that whiskey glass at the wall and watch it smash.
That's right. Yeah. After your 6th or 7th one, all bets are off.
You never told me how you found the show. We just started talking about it
Justin,
and never had origins.
It starts as every good story does with a trip to the podiatrist, if you can believe it. Sure. I am from the great state of South Carolina. And I'm a good old Southern boy at heart, even though my mom was an English teacher. And I had never heard of Yellowstone, like legitimately had never heard of it. And I think it was in season 2. And I had this thing on the bottom of my foot, and I thought it was a wart. It wasn't a wart because I got it frozen off and it came right back. And it turned out it was a congested sweat gland, which is more information than anyone needs. But basically I had to like clean it out and then like sanitize it. Long story short, I met the podiatrist, and the woman who's taking my stats, blood pressure and everything, cannot stop talking about Yellowstone. Like completely unsolicited. I don't know what vibe I gave her that I needed to hear about Yellowstone, but she was like, "Can't wait to get home tonight to watch Yellowstone." And I'm like, "Oh, is it like a documentary about the park?" And she's like, "No, it's got Kevin Costner in it, and it's a TV show." I thought she was making it up. And so I went home. I saw what it was. I was like, I'm here for Kevin Costner giving any speech in a cowboy hat. That is just my first rule, is if he's Wyatt Earp, if it's whatever it is, I'm here for it. He can just, gravelly tell me about the land and how he should keep it. And so I decided to check it out and just immediately was on board. I also am a big Taylor Sheridan fan. Loved Hell or High Water, loved Wind River. He wrote Sicario, which I loved. So I was like, the guy that did those movies is going to do a Western modern day with Kevin Costner. Stop selling. I was in before I watched a single second of the show, and I was hooked from scene 1. So I'm here, unabashedly love the show, and am excited to dive in every week and talk about like the soapy political mess that we've gotten ourselves into in season 5.
Do you know why I think we're a really good duo for this?
We both grew up in the South, but neither of us are actual cowboys.
Well, I'm a cowboy. Look, I got a hat on the wall.
I got my one flannel out here, so I'm good, right?
So the actor, besides of course Kevin Costner, that I knew really well going in was Wendy Moniz, who plays the now senator from Montana.
Yeah, the governor.
Because she played Dinah on Guiding Light, which was my mama's favorite soap
Story.
opera, and
Yeah.
her stories. And I would watch it every day after elementary school with her. And she used to save half of her biscuit and gravy so that I would have something to eat so I wasn't talking during her stories.
I mean, God bless her, Mama. I mean, my grandma would either call it stories or her program. Sometimes she'd say my program, which would be the other way to say it. And she did. It was Days of Our Lives was hers. So I didn't get to see the governor, now senator from Montana, unfortunately.
I feel like we're letting people down. If you guys want to hear more about our mamas, you can tune into our podcast, My Mama, and Me.
Yeah,
and
I was going to say My Mama Must Die would have been a terrible name for that show. So yours was better. Yours is a better name.
We'll pivot hard toward Yellowstone. Since it's our first episode, I wanted to give you guys an idea of what you can expect as we go over these episodes each week. We're going to do a review where I have sat down. I wish I could say that this just like come out of my head, but I sat down and stream of consciousness it. Yes. So it sounds as close to crazy as possible, but still being comprehensible. Then we're going to go over some of our favorite parts of the episode, some of the things that stood out to us, and perhaps some of the little nuggets that are callbacks to other seasons or other series, because the Sheridan verse is expansive now. And then because we care about human life here first and foremost, we will end each week with an in memoriam. You might think, that's a little dark. But life is dark. Life is difficult. And it's better than my initial idea, which was me singing the theme song to you guys at the end each week, which is like,
if you made up lyrics, I'd be in for the theme song bit, because that would be an in memoriam of its own.
It's been too long since we've seen each other in person, but I do have a fully like choreographed dance.
Oh man!
But we'll save it for a different time.
Save it for our first live show, Justin.
All right. So to kick things off, let me give you guys a rundown of what happened in episode 1 of season 5 of Yellowstone. When we left off last season, John had announced he was going to run for governor. Beth had gone too far in almost every aspect of her life, including showing up in a slinky conjugal dress, kidnapping a priest, and forcing him to marry her and Rip. But the real twist is when Beth forced Jamie to kill his biological father, then photographed him disposing of the body. Yikes. Casey went on a spiritual journey where he said he saw, quote, the end of him and Monica right around the time where Monica told him she was pregnant. Double yikes. But in the premiere, we jumped forward about 7-8 months. Is that what you'd say, Dan?
Yeah, she's given birth, so almost 9.
Yeah. John has won the governorship despite clearly hating politics and the idea of holding office or wearing a suit. Beth is glued to his side, crying tears of joy, and Jamie is glued to hers, crying tears of fear because he killed his father, and also he looks like that eagle from the Muppets.
He does. Color that guy blue, it's over. You're right.
Perfect. The Yellowstone world flashes back and shows us Beth and Rip's first date, which took place days before she was supposed to leave for college. Actually, day before she was supposed to leave for college. She was as brusque back then as she is now, and she belittled Rip, going as far to hook up with another ranch hand right in front of him as he watched from afar. She also did this thing where she kind of like leaned down and like showed her business as an 18-year-old to get a dirty martini. And if you're going to do that, at least make it like a Long Island tea, like make it a drink that's going to last. But flashback to now, Beth is clearly resentful of her past. Despite being married to Rip, she can't quite get over what she's done. And I don't think it's that whole Jamie let me get an abortion and they sterilized me thing alone. I think it's the way she treated Rip and just the way she's made her way through the world. But I'm sure we'll get more to that later. For now, John is thrown into the rigmarole of being governor. All he wants is to shut down Market Equities and the airport that they want to create. But it turns out that being a governor is about more than just doing that one thing for yourself. John decides to help the people of Montana out and tax the bejesus out of anyone who isn't a resident, which obviously doesn't go over well. The Yellowstone ranch throws a governor's ball and everything seems fine, even for the bunkhouse. Walker has a new love interest in actress/singer Lainey Wilson. But as the evening rolls out, Rip tells Beth that he thinks all of this is bad news. John is going to lose the ranch. It reminds him of Rome. We'll get to that as well.
Yeah, he pulls out the Nero reference. What are you going to
do? Who among us, you know? Meanwhile, an important update, Casey is up near Canada, wrangling some horse thieves back to face justice when he lassos a man and has a tiff with the Canadian police, but the Canadian police back down because they're Canadian. He gets called back home because it turns out that Monica is in labor. She can't wait for him to arrive, though, so she and Tate decide to drive to the hospital and in the process get into a car accident caused by a moose. Perhaps it's an elk, maybe a buffalo. I don't know because I was screaming. When the Duttons arrive at the hospital, they find Casey in Monica's hospital bed, hugging her like this is the second season finale of Grey's Anatomy, but it isn't. It's the 5th season premiere of Yellowstone. The good news is that Monica's alive. The bad news is that their newborn son, christened by the name John Dutton IV, has died. And that is what you need to know from season 5, episode 1 of Yellowstone.
Expertly done, sir. Expertly done.
Thank you so much.
Didn't miss anything important. This is everything you needed.
Oh, I did. Wait, I don't think Carter appeared.
Not yet. No. That's the next one, right?
I think so. This being a double episode, it's really messing with us. So you can tell with the professionality is already out the window, and it's not going to get better. So I hope y'all weren't expecting that. Dan, I want to, kick it over to you first. What was the thing that jumped out to you as like, oh crap, we got to discuss this?
Gosh, I can't believe we skipped an entire campaign. Like I was just under the assumption that we were going to get a lot of shady doings with Beth and John and winning this election. And it's like, we just jumped to the fact that he's won it, which unless they time jump 4 more years, we're going to get a lot of like political John Dutton this season, which, can I say this? I'm very much here for. It's a different and it's a logical next step for, I got to keep my land at all costs. It's a logical next step for that. That's where the show is. And so that was surprising. That stood out to me first and foremost. And then the end of the episode felt like it came out of just nowhere. Like the baby and the wreck, all of that escalated very, very quickly, as it does in Yellowstone. And so the bookends of this episode are really what stood out to me from a standpoint of going, oh, wow, we jumped ahead 8 or 9 months, which is very unlike Yellowstone. I mean, in between season 3 and 4, it was 10 seconds, because we pick up right after that shooting happens. So that was a surprise to me. But I like it. It's a bold move, and I like seeing what John Dutton has to do as governor versus having him campaign for a season. So that was my big takeaway from episode 1. What about you?
I'll be frank with you. I found it particularly refreshing that we skipped the campaign, because in the world that we live in, I would love to skip campaigns. And so, I got there and I was like, okay, yeah, we got a winner. We're just going to move forward. For me, I don't know how much overlap we have here, but the way that I met Dan is that, I of course guested on Deck the Hallmark podcast, which covers Christmas movies on Hallmark. Mm-hmm. But then I also hosted My Year with Dolly, which went over all of Dolly Parton's career, 1 week at a time, 1 year at a time. And during the Beth and Rip young person date, the flashback, Dolly Parton's Mule Skinner Blues playing in the background.
I thought that's what it was.
There was a lot in the episode that was maybe plot wise more important, but
nothing more important than that.
That was the moment.
Can I tell you what took me out of that scene was I know, I feel have a good grasp on how old Beth and Rip are. I guess I thought I did. If they are the age that I think they are, which is early 40s, then the Jeep Grand Cherokee is a timeless automobile.
Yes.
Timeless. Just doesn't age.
I was like looking at it and I'm like, oh, is that a 2017 Chevy Silverado? Like, I was having a hard time. I
was ready to see the touchscreen in that bad boy. It was impressive. Like, that is not the Jeep Grand Cherokee that I feel like they would have been, because that would have been what? A date that was happening in like 1997 or so, like 25 years ago.
That's what I was trying to put together. I was like doing the math in my head and I was like, this isn't tracking with me. Like,
yeah. But I mean, the rules just don't apply there. Anytime they do flashbacks, it's fun. I mean, Josh Lucas, who pops up from time to time as younger John Dutton, is always fun. And so, like, I like the flashbacks give you a sense. What makes Yellowstone so special is that you feel as though you've also owned the land for hundreds of years. You know what I mean? Like, you have this connection with these people who are actually doing this terrible thing that you're pulling for. Like, that's, John Dutton's an all-time bad guy, but like, I'm here for every speech. I'm here for him to dig his boots in and not give up his land. Like, I'm here for all of it. And I think the flashbacks are a big part of that. So yeah, I was totally down for that flashback.
Since we're on the topic of Beth and Rip, there were a couple things that jumped out to me this episode about their dynamic and where I think the rest of the season's going. Obviously, I think one of the most important pieces of Yellowstone is this hatred between Beth and Jamie, and then now learning how Rip factors into that. And if you guys are just hopping in on season 5, I think it was season 3, it was revealed that Beth had an abortion. She was a teenager who got pregnant, and Jamie took her to a Planned Parenthood, but they would have to document down that she had the abortion. So they redirected her to this other clinic that is for Native American women. But part of it, and this is like a real thing that happened in the world for a very long time, is that at this clinic, if you got an abortion, you were also sterilized.
It's unbelievable.
And Beth, and crazy, absolutely crazy. The stuff that's honestly not, abortions, but like, it's those kind of details that are my favorite part of Yellowstone, when they like reveal these things that you're like, that didn't happen. And it definitely did.
Definitely.
But I think, Beth didn't know that was part of the deal. Jamie signed off on it, essentially sterilizing Beth for the rest of her life.
So she's never, ever forgiven him, nor will she.
No. And I really think that's going to start coming to a head, which is, I think, in part why we got that flashback, to kind of like see that Beth didn't like turn mean and start attacking people at like 35 after like just kind of like getting
baked right into the cake. It was baked right into the cake. There is what that was.
This is the butter. Like, you're not making a cake without the butter. Like, this is Beth's butter.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. You don't get as good as she is at being mean unless you kind of have had practice since you were a child. Like, how Tiger Woods was like putting at 2 years old. Like, she's the Tiger Woods of being mean. Like, she
exactly.
is. And I that would be maybe my only complaint about the episode is like, at some point, Jamie's gonna become a character that I root for, purely because I just don't know how much more the guy can take. I'm not there yet, but I feel like at some point they're gonna get there, because it is ruthless and they never let up. It's almost like they have to check a box of like, well, what's the scene where Beth goes in and just verbally just denigrates Jamie into ash every episode, and it was not any easier today than it was in last season.
Did you ever watch How I Met Your Mother?
Oh yeah, every episode.
To me, he's Patrice. Like, shut up, Patrice. Like, when they just like randomly say that, like every episode, like Jamie just has to go. I have one more thing on Rip, and then I need to talk about Jamie a little bit more. So Rip, as a youngster, did not know what finance was.
No.
Also known as finance.
That's right.
And he didn't know what a martini was. And I like, you know what? Fine. I know that Rip had like difficult childhood. He was like taken in.
He was just in the bunkhouse like his whole life.
Hanging out.
Yeah.
So riddle me this. When did he find out about Nero? Like, martinis, no. Finance, absolutely not. Do you know the guy that plays the fiddle when the fall of Rome happened, Nero? Where'd that come from?
Fair, he didn't know who Nero was. He knew the guy that was playing the fiddle while Rome burned, and Beth had to fill in the Nero information. But it was quite a pull for Rip. Who spent his whole life on the ranch, and as an 18-year-old, you're right, didn't know about the middle things in life, not even the finer things in life. And he pulls out ancient Roman history, which is, I mean, just fantastic. And an apt, as apt an illustration for what's happening in the show, like so on the nose. Like, so not only does the guy who spent his whole life on the bunkhouse with no formal education pull out an illustration from history, but it's a perfect one. It's not a bad one. It's not like he's like, what do they say about rubbing two pennies together when Abe Lincoln and Thomas Edison plugged the bulb in? He doesn't like mess it up. Like, it's the right thing to say at the time. Like, it was mind-boggling.
It was a perfect metaphor. However, I struggle a little bit. I'm not calling Rip stupid. I'm just saying it's not on brand. Like, you're not going to hear me consistently referring to like the Ottoman Empire on this podcast. So like, what say you? Where did that come from? Talk to me about like how, like, I don't know. Like, I was going to make some reference to the band Alabama, but it didn't happen. So, here we are.
I got to delete a page of Turk's tidbits that I was going to throw in for later. So that's on me. Just give me 1 second. I'll clear out all the Ottoman Turk stuff and we'll move on. It's okay. We can edit it out in post. I couldn't believe, like, Rip is a guy that has a ton of street smarts. Like, that's his whole thing. Like, he's loyal to a fault. He cares about the Dutton Ranch more than the Duttons themselves. He should own it one day. He loves Beth Dutton unconditionally. It doesn't matter what she does or where she goes or who she's with. He loves her. And he's not stupid. You're right. But it is, he's not winning Jeopardy anytime soon. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one would bet on Rip in Jeopardy. And so for him to pull that out was something. It was a move. It was a move by him. There's no doubt about it.
Never underestimate Rip.
Never.
We were talking about Jamie, and he's involved in one of probably my favorite moment from the episode. And we're going to keep, the language not on par with Yellowstone.
That's right. Yeah.
But my favorite part is when they're in the car after John's swearing in, which was also really odd because he had this moment where I was like, is he well?
Is he going?
Because he just stopped. He just kind of stared at the judge, and I was like, what's he thinking about? Like, does he not want to do this? Is he like averse to politics? Is he figuring out what he's going to get from Zaxby's later? Because that's what I would be doing.
Yeah, no kidding. I had it for dinner tonight, Justin. So I'm just
shut up. No, you didn't.
I did. Sure did.
Oh God. I'm so jealous. I'm completely off track now.
Extra Zax sauce. Gotta have it.
You got to.
Yeah.
But in this car, Beth pulls out a bottle of whiskey and she goes, "Daddy, can I borrow your whiskey?" And he was like, "Yes, darling." And then from the back, the eagle from the Muppets was like, "Can I get in on that?" And she just says, "Go F yourself." And then that wasn't even the moment because Beth loves to throw an F-bomb. So that just kind of goes in one ear, goes out the other for me at this point. But when Jamie then looks at her, or when John looks at her and says, "Pour your brother a whiskey," she goes, "I will not."
That's right. Yeah.
The hatred is so good. I love it so much. But Jamie's got to be so tired.
Can I tell you what I love most about that scene? Is it somehow in an SUV, they're in 3 different rows. So it's a stretch SUV, and these 3 people are family, and none of them are in the same row. Like, there's so much room, but John's up here, Beth's in the middle, Jamie's in the back, and it's this perfect hierarchy of character importance and character need, and Beth making sure she's this buffer between Dad and Jamie. All of it is the show. And it's just this little thing that they do to make the conversation better. They could easily have all been in the back seat, or Beth and Jamie could be on the same. No. This is perfect. It's I'm not going to do this. Even if my dad tells me, Dad's going to have to force my hand. It was just this, if you wanted to draw a diagram of kind of how the show works with those 3, it would be like they're in separate rows of an SUV. So like, I loved every second of that. And Jamie's going to snap. He's going to snap or lose his mind or something. But I also, and this is a little bit more serious, but John Dutton in that scene, is it that scene that they're in the car and he's like, everything we do as I do as a governor, the most important thing I do isn't for this state. It's to keep this land. Like it's to keep the Dutton Ranch. He is like, look, if you're listening to the pod and you're a big Yellowstone fan like we are, I hope you don't come in and get mad when I tell you that John Dutton is a monster. I love, like, it's like Walter White, or the people on Succession. Like, I love to pull for them, even though they're terrible people. Like, think about what John Dutton is actually fighting for. And he dresses it up with like, we're trying not to pollute this state, but what he's really fighting for is to keep his power, like all of it. And to be the governor and then to just say in his raspy voice, like, this is not about what's best for the state. This is about keeping the Dutton Ranch in Dutton family name. That is like Walter White, I'm the one who knocks. Like, that is like a moment where you're like, he is not even trying. He's saying the quiet part out loud. Like, yes, I'm governor of the state. Yes, I'm going to say this is what's best for Montana, but that is not the top of the list. It isn't what's best for Montana. It's what's best for me. And what's best for me is to keep my land. That is, you're seeing like a turn there that I don't think they've gone to yet. Like, they're clicking him up a few notches, and that makes me happy. So like, that was my big takeaway from that scene, even though Jamie's in the back scene was really, really fun.
My therapist has told me to quit extending empathy to everyone. And that's a big reason for my exhaustion, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to push back on you, and I'm going to justify John Dutton.
I love it. Please.
Because I don't think it's crazy. I just think that he has lived in this world. I don't know if this stood out to you, but the scene where he's about to, I believe, have like brunch with his staff for the first time, and when Wendy Moniz, aka Dinah from Guiding Light, walks in, and he goes, "Y'all talk about how there's hunger problems. This could feed everybody." And like, the first thing that came into my mind was like, well, let's not play working man's hero here, John. Like, you've got more money than God. Like, right. You could also probably feed all of Montana.
Yes.
But like, you're not. And I just think he is so blind to like his existence and like how he lives in this world, and like something that is like haunting me from 1883 for like the super fans that have watched that as well. In the spoiler alert also, if you haven't, so it's all about kind of how the Duttons end up in Montana and settling where they do, and to keep from giving any more away than need be. When they get to this point, they're in a really desperate position to settle somewhere. So they come across this land in Montana, and this Indian chief tells them, "You can settle here, but in 7 generations, we will be taking the land back." 7 generations.
Buckle
and that's
up.
Like, clearly the telephone game didn't work so well, because it seems like John has completely forgotten about this. For those who don't have the family tree painted on their wall like I do.
Yeah, it's in front of you. Like, we can't see it, but you can see it. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So John is 5, Casey is 6, and Tate is 7.
Tate is 7. Correct.
So the baby's happened. Like, the omen is here, but John has seemed to have completely forgotten about all of this, and he has gotten to this place where it's just like, it's my land or bust, which is how ultimately we came up with the title of this podcast, John Dutton Must Die, because John Dutton is gonna have to die at some point. Because, I mean, can you see this man like sitting down with Wendy Moniz, aka Dinah from Guiding Light, and her talking sense into him, and him being like, "Oh yeah, of course, I'll give the land back.
Yeah,
like,
I'll sell the land.
End well.
Done. No. Like, there's no world where this show has any integrity if by the end of it, John Dutton doesn't die. Like, he has, like, that's the crux of the whole show. Like, it has
that's the story. Morning Glory.
Yeah, exactly. I can't imagine a world, and I love, like, I don't want to watch a Yellowstone without Kevin Costner, but I think that's the beauty of what they've done here, is that they've crafted a guy who, yeah, he's like Gollum in the Ring. Like, he doesn't, I think his life has now become this thing where it's a perpetual cycle. He's like a hamster on a wheel of just trying to keep the thing that he has and losing kind of his bearings on what that means outside of himself and his ranch and his land. And even to the extent that it hurts his family from time to time. So it's a fascinating portrayal of a man getting older and clinging tighter and tighter to the thing that he thinks is his savior and his saving grace. And that very few people can pull that off in a Western. And so Lord knows we're all glad we got Kevin Costner, because it could have gone wrong in a hurry if they didn't have him. And he's crushing it right now. He just is.
Knowing good and well, if I lean all the way into this, it would completely derail the episode, and people would be like, I liked the content, but I don't know if I can listen to 2 hours every week. I've been watching, do you watch The Crown?
Yeah, but I've not started 5 yet, because I've been like doing some Yellowstone stuff.
The Crown feels like Yellowstone to me.
Oh, wow.
You've got the same kind of situation, because the queen is holding on to this institution that she is so certain needs to be there and needs to function in a certain type of way. And I feel like that's what you're running into, the same kind of situation. Not to say it's reductive or anything, but it's funny.
Yeah, I was going to say, I get Succession vibes. Succession is a phenomenal show, but it's so simple. Like patriarch Brian Cox, he's got the one kid who everybody can't stand, who's gone off the rails. That's a little bit like Jamie's got a daughter that really is smart enough to run the show, but is she ever going to get the chance to run the show? He's got a younger brother who's kind of like crazy into some crazy stuff. Is he around? Is he not around? So that's always my big comparison, is both of these shows are filled with people that are undeniably not good people, but we still love to watch them every week and pull for them every week. That's how I watch it anyway. And I could be in the minority there, but that's how I watch it. Now,
you were talking about a younger brother who is around but isn't around. This episode, for some reason, Casey's at the Canadian border, right? Is that what you got from it too?
Yes. Because they say well, we'd rather be arrested in Canada. And I'm like, he's doing what now? I for the life of me, I honestly believe the show does not know what to do with Casey from year to year. And he's super attractive and gets a lot of people to watch the show and is a good actor. And but I feel like they just keep throwing darts at the board on this guy, and it's something different every year. Am I wrong on that? Is that a bad take?
No, that's English. No, I get that. And I feel like they don't quite know what to do with him. And also I don't feel like they know. I had to pull out my Rand McNally map and start looking, because when it comes to Casey, I feel like everything can just get thrown out the window at any moment.
Yeah.
Because Yellowstone, at least where I believe Yellowstone happens, isn't anywhere close to the Canadian border.
Correct.
And I feel like they just move him around, plot wise, location wise, motivation.
Are we to believe that he's the only livestock agent for the state? He's the guy in charge of the whole, Montana's freaking huge, man. He's the guy that's going up to the Canadian border.
And also at the end of last season, we left him in this very vulnerable place. I actually thought it was one of the more interesting. Anytime they bring the Native American tribes in, I think it's fascinating, because you get into this extra layer of Yellowstone and Westerns that I feel like you don't see a lot told from that perspective. And I thought it was interesting to take this, like you said, this attractive guy, good actor, put him literally in this one spot and make him face his demons and go on this big vision quest. And then this season they were kind of happened. And you're like,
that was fun. Let's move on along.
Monica's at home, and 9 months ago he was like, I saw the end of us, and she's like, I'm pregnant. And it's we we never went back. So Casey's up in Canada doing his thing. Can you imagine lassoing a man? By the way, he was just like whop whop.
Got it. And it looked for all intents and purposes as though he did that. Like it looked like when they filmed it that he actually did it. And if he didn't, that's some great movie making magic, because it looked like he really did. Like it looked like the actor was on the horse and lassoing the dude. So that's impressive. And Taylor Sheridan, who, if you've ever seen, have you seen Wind River?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. He does a great job dealing with Native American relations anyway. In general, like it's something I think, he's from Texas and he has some of that background, and he does a great job, but I feel like he does a great job with this stuff too. And it could have easily been a situation where you just kind of see the rope or whatever, but it's an impressive feat. I can't imagine trying to ride a horse and lassoing anything.
Well, one of the fun tidbits of like talking with some of the cast is they all have to go to cowboy camp.
So great.
Like when you show up on the show, they like throw you on a horse, you wake up early, like you learn to ride, you learn to rope, you learn to when they in that stuff that, and then they push them in. Yeah. Yippee-yi. Yeah. That too. They learn how to do all of it. Stuff that I can't even imagine trying. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there is a chance that he actually roped that guy.
There's no way Kevin Costner went to cowboy camp. There's no way.
Like Kevin Costner's low key a cowboy anyway. It's fine.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, between Wyatt Earp and Dances with Wolves and everything else, like I guarantee you, if anybody suggested it, he'd been like, "What are you talking about? No, I'm good. I've been a cowboy my whole life. You leave me be."
You're like cowboy camp. I'm the titular role.
That's right.
I am that cowboy.
That's right.
But we're doing the same thing to Casey that Yellowstone does to Casey, which is forget about him.
John Dutton's cool, isn't he?
Kevin Costner could just be any kind of cowboy he wants to be. In this 5-paragraph essay. No, Casey's up in Canada. He gets the call. He calls Monica to tell her that he's going to be late making his way back across the state. And Monica's like, "No big deal. I'm going to Billings anyway. I'm 9 months pregnant and I'm going to have this baby." And he's like, "What? Can you hold on to it?" Because Casey has no grasp of how apparently,
babies work.
The baby female body relation works. And she's like, "No, that's not cut nice." So she hops in her car with Tate and decides to drive. And honestly, Tate, who is like, these children have really aged up this season, because I'm guessing he's somewhere in the range of like, I can't tell how old children are. So he could be 10, he could be 17. I don't know.
I felt like he was old enough to try to drive. I can tell you that much.
Samesies.
Please, Tate, just take the wheel, man. Like, I don't like he was on the ranch for forever. He can ride a horse. He can't drive a car. Get out of here.
Then this moose, elk, potentially a buffalo. What do you think it was? It jumped out.
I think it was a moose, but I'm not positive. They show the picture of like the hooves first, and they're like really hairy around it. And then like by the time it hits it, there's so much going on. And like, what else is, I'm pretty sure the guy that they hit is dead.
So we didn't even look to see what happened there. It was just like, we saw him laying there and it was like, he's gone. So, but Monica swerves and misses the moose. And I can't tell if she crawled out of the car, but she's over there giving birth.
That's right.
Ultimately gives birth to the baby. They end up at the hospital and the baby dies after an hour. And we all watched that, and it's heartbreaking. And I thought it was a really poignant moment for the Duttons, because you don't see them all together as a family.
Hardly ever.
And you don't see them together as a family being nice to each other at all.
Mm-mm.
And it was a really, really tender moment, because you even had like Beth reaching over and like consoling Tate. Casey's like fully in bed with Monica. And I feel like Monica runs into the same fate that Casey does, and that sometimes I don't think Yellowstone quite knows what to do with her.
Yep, correct.
So they've made her literally just like a trauma bag.
Yes,
she had that like head blow in season 2, I think, when she's
had a run of it.
there was that bizarre subplot where they decided to catch like the man who was raping and killing Native American women.
That's right. Yep.
And then she almost got her head bashed in then. And then she like got into this car accident. I'm like, can we just like put this woman in a rubber room and call it a day?
Yeah, it is a thing that it seems like it falls upon her or Beth a lot of times for these crazy violent subplots that only Yellowstone could pull off, like these very soapy, Dallas-y like subplots that they managed to somehow come together. And then she spends most of it not even talking, just like unconscious on the bed. And I also feel like, to once again make this about Kevin Costner, he does this thing in this scene where he's talking to Tate, where Tate tells him the boy's alive for an hour and they named him John Dutton. And Costner does this thing that it's uncanny, where he receives the information. It hits him emotionally in his core. He looks like he's going to break down and cry. And then he realizes, I'm John effing Dutton. I got to keep it together for the Dutton family. And so he just sucks those tears back in his eyes, and like that cowboy hat just right into his head. And he's just like, nope, not going to do it. And like clenches his jaw and then goes and consoles everyone else. And it brings it back down. It's like, wait a minute, pregnant 9 months, driving, wrecked. There's a moose elk thing. And they named it John the Fourth. And then all of a sudden Kevin Costner does this one thing. And it's like, oh man, that was great. It just brings it back immediately. It's unbelievable.
He's just like world class
when
it comes to it. And I think that, I love the show. I love the writing, but I think at the end of the day, it's the performances that make the performances and the way it's shot. Cause I'd love to be a fly on that drone, because like, it just makes its way all over Montana, but like it's shot beautifully. Yeah.
How many country bands have gotten like some free press too? Like, I feel like they do a good job of getting this music that you maybe not have heard of. And like, I find myself Shazamming a song like every other week.
This new character is played by Lainey Wilson, who just won Female Vocalist of the Year at the Country Music Awards.
Wow.
And a New Artist of the Year. And this role was created by Taylor Sheridan specifically for her. Like, it's very cool the way that they incorporate these people into the cast.
Yeah.
Ryan Bingham, who plays Walker, is a singer-songwriter who's had like several of his songs featured on the show. It's cool. It's its own little microcosm, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure. He's creating something, and it's amazing that he can just continue to expand. And it all still feels like it's part of the same universe. And it's just this one dude up there pulling all the strings. It's impressive.
Now, as we make our way to the end of this first episode, which I feel like has gone well, this hasn't been nearly as chaotic
fun. No,
as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I'm happy to do this every week, Justin. This is fantastic.
Absolutely. I'll meet you right here. I'll bring the bourbon, and again, throw the glass at the wall when I'm done. It's going to be expensive when it comes to glasses, but I'm willing to do it.
That's fine. I don't know what kind of lease you got on that apartment either. Like, I don't know. I would read some contracts over just in case.
We had a leak for a really long time. My landlord's really lenient now because we were patient. So I think we're good.
Good. Great.
So when we were talking about putting together this podcast, initially we wanted to do something at the end called the body count.
That's right.
And then I came up with the idea that we should change it to in memoriam. And I'm grateful that we did, because Yellowstone went so far as to kill a baby right there.
Right. They sure did.
That was a fully baked one. That
was a move. That was a move there.
That's pulling a whole loaf of sourdough out of the oven, dropping it, and the dog coming and like grabbing it and running away. You're like, oh wow, that's bad. Like we got all the way to the end. So this week's in memoriam highlights John Dutton the Fourth, and at the risk of sounding disrespectful, a moose. And maybe that guy that was driving, but honestly, I'm going to take him off. I think that every death matters, but if you cause an accident because you're reaching over and trying to get a bag of
beef jerky, I thought it was beef jerky.
If it was beef jerky, that makes me even more mad.
I think because he did a little rip thing, like on the bag of beef jerky, that little rip on top, and then you got the reseal. I feel like he did the rip and then went in for the beef jerky. And that makes me feel that truck was probably 30 or 40 years. It's an old F-150. Old, probably an 80s F-150 bag of beef jerky. That would have
convinced me of the time frame of Beth and Rip's date.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
That's the truck I should have seen. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But this guy in that truck in 2022 eating beef jerky while driving, he's probably fine. He probably got up and walked away. That was a nap he was taking, is what that was.
The beef jerky part of it, the beef jerky of it all really ticks me off because there's two kinds of good beef jerky. Homemade deer jerky that you make in a dehydrator or Slim Jims. But don't come at me with that Oberto BS, which is exactly what he was eating. I'm fine. Anyways, the moose is dead. That man doesn't exist to me either way. And we lost John Dutton the Fourth, which I think puts a really kind of twisted spin on the title of this podcast.
A podcast name that we've had in the works for months.
I swear, y'all, it's been locked in for months.
It seems terrible now, but it was not the intention at all. And it just didn't go in our favor. It just was swing and a miss on our part.
John Dutton must die. And in some ways, John Dutton did die.
That's right.
But I think the way that I would like to end each episode is an ongoing bet. You can wager what you want. I'll start with $500. Can you match me? The question. I guess I should give you the question before you bet.
Yeah, I quit.
We'll keep a running tally. Next episode, will John Dutton die?
Oh, yeah. I will take the $500 bet and say, if you're betting that he will, then I will gladly take the bet and say, John Dutton will not die in episode 2 of any season of Yellowstone.
You know what? I'll take the bet, and I feel like he's going to die in episode 2. And
wow.
we'll keep a running ledger. We'll see if it evens out.
That's right. Yeah, it'll be close. We'll go back and forth. You never know what could happen. But this was fun, Justin. Can we do it again next week, please?
Absolutely not.
No?
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it again.
Can I tell you what I'm going to do?
See how it shakes out.
Can I tell you what I'm going to do just from a superstition standpoint, if it's okay with you? I'm going to wear the exact same thing. Is that cool? I'm going to wear the exact same thing for next week's episode, just because I feel like we're in a rhythm and I don't want to mess that up,
I'll match you. I'll do the same thing. This sweatshirt, next episode, and I'll talk with you then.
Perfect. Sounds good, man. Looking forward to it.
Guys, this is John Dutton Must Die, a Yellowstone podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Pour yourself a glass of bourbon. Don't take a single sip. Throw it at the wall. And we'll see you next episode. I'm Justin Kirkland.
I'm Daniel Thompson.
And howdy or yippee-yi. We'll figure out the ending.
Yippee-ki-yay. John Dutton must die.